Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me, and this is actually the first time I've ever done a full voiceover recording for one of these time-lapse videos, so I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you like hearing about my process, and please tell me if you enjoy it in the comments down below. So basically for this piece, I just went ahead and started out with the base sketch. I did have a reference image that I used for this. It was a screen capture within the game, but genuinely this is what you see here. It did take quite a while to get everything that I wanted sketched in. I did take some artistic license in a lot of certain things, like the large scales in the water, as well as I think I tried to make Jormungandr's face just a little bit bigger because that was my main focus on this mixed media artwork. I would say that it was a watercolor painting, but seeing as how I used a variety of different things, I think it's probably best to call it mixed media, because what you guys can see now is that I'm inking Kratos and Atreus in on their boat/canoe. So a big problem that I had with ink, unfortunately, was when I ended up inking in Atreus. He ended up looking like that Bobby Hill character from that animated show. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. And when I started inking the scales in, they are a little bit different from how they were within the reference image as well. But I had such a fun time figuring out how I wanted to do Jormungandr's scales and everything, and it was so important to me to render him as well as I could. So you'll see me put in so much detail. I put a lot of thought in, and he's just such a great character, even though he's such a small character within the game. I mean, what he does has a big impact, but I just love the idea of this big, ginormous world serpent just wrapped around the island as well as around the whole world, and he's just this big friendly giant. He's a BFG, guys. So for all of you guys out there who have never played the God of War PS4 game, here's a little bit of a tiny bit of backstory. A lot of what happens is based off of Norse mythology, and not the friendly Marvel Studios Norse mythology, but genuine. I think they did pretty well with by the book Norse mythology within the game. The Norse gods were not the greatest of people, but freaking Jormungandr is the nicest character in the game, in my opinion. And he just sits there and he looks around and he helps you occasionally. Actually, he helps you a lot on your journey. So again, that was really what my main focus here was Jormungandr, because he the real MVP. Alright, so I finally got into watercolor with a big watercolor pencil that I got in an Art Snacks box. My sister got me the year subscription, so it included a lot of really nice art supplies. So I got these nice watercolor pencils, and just to try to put some color into the sky and go around the areas I wanted the clouds to be in. So funny story here is we start the watercolor process on Jormungandr, the main focal point of this watercolor / mixed media painting, you guys. Unfortunately, I went in way too dark because I had not anticipated how to use watercolor. Like I got a lot of good tips from YouTube videos. Finally, a good friend of mine came by the stream and he went, go get a spray bottle of water and use that to mix in your water. Don't use your cleaning jars because that was another good tip from watercolors, were to get 2 jars, both filled with water, obviously, and to rinse your brush out in the first jar, and then do a second rinse in the second jar. And it really, really helped. Like, the second jar of water freaking never got spoiled at all. It was just magical in my opinion. However, I was having an issue at the very beginning of this piece where I was trying to take the water from the jars and I didn't know how, and I didn't have a pipette, you know, those little squeezy things that you used to have in science class. Yeah, I didn't have those. So unfortunately I was really struggling, and when I started out on Jormungandr's face, I apparently did not grab as much water as I needed to, because I was using one of those little palette cakes of watercolor. Just keep in mind, I had a variety of different watercolor supplies. I had the pencils, I had the cakes, and I had the tubes, a beginner tube set of watercolors as well. So I had a lot on my plate, on my palette, as it were. And so I started out Jormungandr, and I genuinely started freaking out because I thought I had ruined him. I thought, oh, this watercolor is way too dark on his face. And unfortunately, I mixed it with white watercolor, which ended up being quite opaque, which ended up taking out a lot of the detail that I painstakingly put in ink. You could still kind of see it, but you will see me go over that. You'll see me go over the lines in Jormungandr's face again, simply because I had made that mistake at the very beginning of this piece. Story time over. I was terrible at watercolor at first, and water spray bottles are your friend. So after that first layer I did of the sky and the lake, I realized that I needed to tape the piece down. It was because I was using a mixed media paper. I believe watercolor paper would have kind of done the same thing in the end, but I really wanted the mixed media paper because I have a variety of different things that I want to do, not only watercolor but also inks and maybe acrylics, and just go all over the place. So that was my thought process in that paper choice. So it's very tragic, slightly tragic story time here, is that I painted the back of the paper with water, and then I put down a slab of wood, and then on top of it I laid the piece, and then on top of that I laid down the paper that was supposed to protect the front of the piece. After 12 hours and coming back to the piece, I lifted everything off of the mixed media piece, and it was perfectly flat, so I'll give it that. It worked. It flattened out the piece. Unfortunately for me, a portion of the colors kind of bled into the piece of paper that was supposed to protect it. So what I would recommend is maybe not use another sheet of paper, but instead use maybe plastic. The permanent white gouache by Winsor & Newton is not as opaque as it leads you to believe. I was trying to go over the inked in edges to try and give it, you know, a scroll paper kind of look at the end here. But you'll see that I turn it a whole bunch because it is not that opaque. I had to put
layer after layer after layer.
Since that permanent white gouache didn't work, I ended up doing some highlights with a jelly roll pen. A jelly roll white gel pen. It worked magical wonders, and I got really bold at the end here and decided to highlight all of our characters in this white kind of sticker looking line effect around all of the characters, and I really love the way that it came out. thank you so very much for listening to me ramble on and on and on about my misadventures in watercolor / mixed media. But yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a lovely morning, evening, or afternoon wherever you guys are. Let it be a lovely day. See you guys later. Bye.